chance. 1, 2, 3.
While Alice in Chains are known for their dark history and gloomy music, let's do something completely different today. Let's talk about some of the more lighthearted stories about the band. Before we get started, be sure to hit the bell notification icon and put all notifications on. I hear from a lot of my subscribers that they don't even get notifications when I post my videos. I would greatly appreciate if you guys did that, in addition to, of course, watching my videos and sharing my content. Today's first story happened when Alice was out on the road supporting their sophomore effort, Dirt. They were playing a show in Europe as part of a 2-month-long tour with Screaming Trees, who they were really close with. The band by this point had recently replaced original bassist Mike Starr with Mike Inez. At a concert in Stockholm, Sweden in February of 1993, during the show, an audience member near the stage was making inappropriate hand gestures and salutes and beating up people next to him. According to one of the band's roadies, Randy Biro, in the book Alice in Chains: The Untold Story, he recalled he was doing that thrashing in a circle, just elbowing people in the face and punching people out. It was these actions that caught the eye of Layne. The band just finished performing their song It Ain't Like That from their first record, Facelift. Layne spoke into the microphone, "We love you Swedish people," and then he walked to the edge of the stage, talked to a security guard, and pointed to the troublemaker in the audience. Layne asked for the audience member to be brought up on stage. Security and the band's crew were a little perplexed. Why was Layne being so nice to this guy? Well, Layne pulled the guy up on stage. He then punched him twice, and then security threw him out of the show. Now, you can't really go punching people regardless of what they do and get away with it in most places. Following that show, the band got word that the Swedish police were actually looking for Layne. It turned out that audience member that Layne punched had called the police, who in turn went looking for the frontman. Apparently, they sent a SWAT team after Layne. You gotta love stock footage. The band panicked and tried to leave the country as quickly as they could. Layne and a security guard rushed to a ferry that would take them to Finland, which was out of the police's reach. The rest of the band were, meanwhile, back at the hotel, and they were rushing to check out. But the police arrived before the band and their crew could leave. They temporarily detained the band members and their crew, preventing them from leaving the country, but Layne was nowhere to be found. The police eventually did learn about Layne's plans and his whereabouts, and they were able to board that ferry before he could escape. Layne would be arrested. In a funny twist, the brother of the man that Layne assaulted told the police that his brother was fighting people in the audience and Layne was merely sticking up for the fans. After hearing the confession, Biro remarked how the police congratulated the band and then let everyone go, with Biro adding, Layne was always a good person about bullies because he had been bullied as a kid. He wasn't a good-looking guy and got picked on as a youngster and seemed to remember that. When he got into a powerful position, he paid people back or helped people out. While a lot of bands sang about partying or chicks, Alice in Chains really didn't, as they tackled more dark subject matter despite their goofy offstage persona. Bassist Mike Starr told the Lansing Journal, "We write about something to get it off our chests. We take out our aggressions on our music so we don't have to be negative in person." Immediately following Alice in Chains' debut record Facelift, which came out in August of 1990, the band did a few warm-up shows in Seattle. Soundgarden had finished their Louder Than Love tour, and they shared the same manager with the band, Susan Silver, who was Chris Cornell's wife. Since Soundgarden was now off the road, Silver had actually hired some of Soundgarden's crew to work for Alice. Alice had a total of 6 people from Soundgarden's crew working for them: 3 techs, a merch seller, a sound engineer, and tour manager. They also got Soundgarden's tour bus. The tour to support Facelift saw the band open for a variety of acts, including Van Halen, Poison, Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Extreme. Let's just say Alice in Chains weren't exactly fans of touring with Extreme. Following those warm-up shows in Seattle, Alice opened some dates for Extreme, doing a month-long tour with them, and Extreme were supporting their record Extreme 2 Porno Graffiti at the time. They were playing at venues ranging from 500 to 1,500 people. Extreme's crew, with the exception of a few people, had no real experience touring. It seemed like to the guys in Alice in Chains and their crew, Extreme simply hired their buddies and they had no humor on tour or camaraderie with the guys from Alice. At Extreme's homecoming show in Boston, the band's production manager arrogantly told a crew member of Alice in Chains, "Wow, you ever been in a room this big?" To which the crew member responded, "Wow, is this as big as a stadium?" The production manager told him to fuck off and basically walked away. Guitarist Jerry Cantrell revealed to author Greg Prado, starting out with a really lame tour for us was opening for Extreme for 30 days. Jesus Christ, a couple of guys were cool, but there were other guys who had egos. At the end of the 30 days, we had enough. We've been playing to empty rooms too. They didn't have their More Than Words hit yet. We got an attitude from what we could do, what we couldn't do on stage. He'd go on to reveal that Alice's members were not allowed to smoke or drink on stage because Gary Cherone liked to perform barefoot. One of Alice's road crew people told author David DeSola, Extreme fans were generally little seedy guitar player wannabe dudes. I think they were starting to hit with that More Than Words god-awful ballad. They took that one to the bank. More than words is all I ever. Another crew member added, they were just really cheesy guys. Their music was exactly like they were. According to the same crew guys, the guys from Extreme had an old school rock mentality, meaning that they screwed over the opening act by turning down their PA. They didn't give them adequate lighting or sound checks. At one gig in Atlanta, the band played on such a small stage that Extreme's drum riser took up the whole center, so Layne had to sing to the side of the stage, and Extreme's crew did nothing to move their stuff to make the performance a little more bearable for the opening act. According to Alice's crew, because of the horrible experience of touring with Extreme, they never treated their opening acts like crap. At the last gig as part of the tour, Alice had enough of Extreme's rules and they drank on stage, they spilt their drinks on purpose and smoked. The band had the attitude that since it was the last gig of the tour, they couldn't get fired. Bassist Mike Starr would, according to Jerry, get nervous on stage. He had a few beers in him and ended up puking on the drum kit. There was an incident earlier in the tour when Starr was so drunk he jumped on Extreme's bass cabinets, knocking them over, angering the road crew from Extreme. It was following this tour that the members of Alice in Chains joined up with Iggy Pop playing theaters, and it was a considerably more fun experience. While we're on the topic of tours, in 1991, Alice joined the Clash of the Titans tour, a package tour that included Anthrax, Slayer, and Megadeth. While Alice in Chains have earned the respect of metal fans around the world, they were pretty early in their career at this point, and people didn't really know who they were, or at least they were starting to wake up to how great this band is. What you may not know is that Alice in Chains were never supposed to be on the Clash of the Titans tour. The Clash of the Titans tour had two legs. One took place from September to October of 1990, with the other taking place from May to July of 91. For the second leg, it was supposed to feature the Bay Area thrash band Death Angel, who was supposed to play as part of the 50-day tour across North America. But on November 28, 1990, the band's tour bus was involved in a crash that seriously injured their drummer, Andy Gallion. Unable to perform the tour, Death Angel were replaced with Alice in Chains. Slayer guitarist Kerry King had initially branded Alice as a hippie pop band, and while the label was inaccurate, it did foreshadow the attitude that the group would be met with from Slayer's audience. Jerry Cantrell recalled in an interview just how well received they were, admitting, Slayer fans were brutal to us. When we played at Red Rocks, they were throwing so much at us that we could hardly see the crowd. Someone threw a huge water jug that knocked over Sean's cymbals, and spit was flying everywhere. Layne shouted, "F*** you," and spit back at them, and trading blows with them, so we all jumped the barricades and did the same thing. Kerry King, meanwhile, remembered how some audiences urinated in a big gallon jug and then dumped it on Alice in Chains, adding, they dumped it on Alice in Chains more than once. It was like, God damn, that sucks. It was a pretty frequent occurrence for audiences to pelt Alice with whatever objects they could. It was following the show at Red Rocks that Alice in Chains headed back to their bus, and they ran into a group of Slayer fans who had backstage passes who started walking towards the quartet. Jerry remembered, we're going to get our fucking asses kicked, but they walked over and went, okay man, you didn't puss out, I guess you're all right. Once the band got validation from Slayer fans, they could feel that things were finally changing for them. When the tour did stop in Seattle for a show at the Mercer Arena, Megadeth leader Dave Mustaine would be interviewed by Guitar World magazine, and the interviewer would tell Mustaine that Alice in Chains used to be a glam band, which Mustaine wasn't aware of. It turned out the interviewer, a guy named Jeff Gilbert, had some t-shirt designs of when Alice in Chains used to be more of a glam band when they went by the moniker Alice in Chains, kind of like Guns N' Roses. He sent some of the shirts to Mustaine, who had his tour manager make posters from the photos and put them up all over the arena. Gilbert recalled to David DeSola, by the time Alice in Chains showed up, you couldn't walk anywhere. Those poor guys would walk in and see this poor glam band, and it was so flippin' funny, just everywhere before the doors even opened. Layne and Jerry thought the joke was pretty funny. Anthrax guitarist Scott Ian told Guitar World, Alice in Chains time on that tour. We'd stand on stage every night and just watch them get pelted with anything and everything. Those crowds could throw it at them. You know what? In a lot of ways, it's what made that band. It was partway through the tour that the single Man in the Box was starting to gain traction. There was a meeting at MTV's office in the spring of '91. The meeting was to decide which of two bands was going to get the Buzzbin seal of approval. In one corner was Alice in Chains, and the other was Blue Murder. Blue Murder had two songs to choose from, Valley of the Kings and Jelly Roll. Tired of hair bands, the network wanted to do something different, so they went with Alice. The decision guaranteed that the song Man in the Box would get a certain number of plays for the week, and then it would be added in regular rotation. Jerry recalled that video and the MTV Buzzbin clip helped us out a lot, and I know it helped out a lot of other bands as well. It can blow you up really fast. Once MTV added the song, the group's debut album, Facelift, saw a massive jump in sales from number 166 to number 108 on the charts. 6 weeks later, it peaked at number 42 and was later certified gold, becoming the first album from the Big Four Seattle bands to reach that feat. It was following the Clash of the Titans tour that Alice in Chains soon opened for Van Halen. Their opening dates went from August of '91 all the way to January of 1992, with some breaks sprinkled in between. Van Halen frontman Sammy Hagar told the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, I said, let's find a cool new band that needs exposure. I was watching MTV and saw Man in the Box video. Layne Staley is one of the greatest new singers today. At the same time, however, Hagar did admit that bands like Alice did make him feel insecure, as he revealed to SiriusXM here.
Do that? Do you ever look back and like kind of in hindsight and go like, God, I am a little bit freaked out by the new guy, or I'm a little bit nervous about it? Or are you at a comfortable place?
Oh, I'm at a total comfortable place now. But when you're like in Van Halen in the 90s, when grunge came along, you know,
right.
That was freaky, man, because I'm looking at these guys and, you know, we were sort of the glam rock, you know, we're all dressed up and dressing like girls and stuff, you know. I mean, come on.
You look pretty fucking fabulous.
And Poison and these guys.
More hairspray than
It was
me.
more fun dressing like that than the way I dress now, I'll tell you that. But then when grunge came and they were like, you know, down and dirty and funky.
Nirvana comes along.
Yeah, and they made me nervous. You know, I thought these guys, they're going to disrespect us. You know, they're going to, you know, look at you, say, yeah, you know, your shit's done, buddy. And it didn't happen. I was so insecure about it that I invited Alice in Chains with their first album, their first single, when they had Man in the Box, to open for Van Halen. They came out on the whole tour with us, and I've been dear friends with Jerry Cantrell since then. But that's how insecure I was. I said, no, let's get them on the damn show. That way their fans will know that we're cool and we're giving them a...
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's kind of genius, though, but it came out of a fear.
Yeah, it came out of fear a little bit. Not bad fear, but like nervousness. It came out of a nervous.
But then also a kind of an intelligent one, because I bet it worked.
It did. No, they did really good, and you know, business was good, and I made a friend out of it, you know.
Still friends with him?
Oh, yeah. Jerry and I, he comes to Cabo for my birthday bash every friggin' year.
Oh, I can only imagine that.
The members of Alice in Chains were all big fans of Van Halen. Layne even saw the band between the ages of 10 and 12, and that's when he really started to take a big interest in music. Bassist Mike Starr, meanwhile, wrote in his high school yearbook that one of his dreams was to open for Van Halen. As with a lot of tours, the bands also pranked one another. Jerry revealed in an interview to Jim Dunlop how Van Halen pranked the band 4 times in one night at their last show together. He recalled how the Van Halen band members and their crew put duct tape all over the stage before Alice's set, so when they walked out, they were dragging around large wads of duct tape. They also sent out some unattractive strippers who stayed out on stage during an entire song. They then sent out some of the Van Halen techs, one of which was named Zeke, who was wearing a little Bo Peep outfit with live sheep. Then during their set closer, Man in the Box, the Van Halen crew guys started taking down the stage setup, leaving drummer Sean Kinney with just a kick and a snare, and they also unplugged Mike Starr's amp. But the guys in Alice didn't take it lying down. They got back at the Van Halen guys, as you can see in this photo here. Jerry recalled Van Halen used to do the signature walk across the stage, and at the time they had these skimpy panties that they would sell to the chicks in the audience. So we took some of those panties and put them on and put on some combat boots, and we made ourselves up as strippers. Jerry went on to add that Eddie Van Halen was one of those guys who never screwed up on stage, but on that night, he was so shocked by what happened, you could hear him miss a couple of notes. We have to talk about Alice in Chains' appearance on Headbangers Ball. While they appeared on the show several times during the early 90s, perhaps one of their most memorable moments came in 1993 during their Lollapalooza tour. They appeared on the program and spent the day at Action Park in Vernon, New Jersey, supposedly the deadliest water park in America at the time. The water park was said to have been responsible for 6 fatalities in just 10 years. The park was soon dubbed Class Action Park due to all the lawsuits they faced, and they were also the subject of an HBO documentary in the last couple of years. The band took in some of the water rides and even partook in sumo wrestling against host Ricky Rackman.
5, Jerry. Can you go 3 out of 5, Jerry? Unless you win the next one. Okay, Ricky and Jerry. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Very a big run at Ricky. Ricky misses and down he goes. And Ricky with a big miss. And that's 2 losses for you, Ricky. Yep, back up there. Okay, Ricky.
Rackman recalled there was never a band that was more fun to do anything with than Alice in Chains. That episode is the most asked about episode ever. As for Action Park, they ended up closing down 3 years after this Headbangers Ball episode aired, with the owner filing for bankruptcy. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again in Rock Culture Stories. Take care.